Hey there, welcome to Craft Central Designs. Today I have for you a lovely Easter door or wall decor piece. I used the egg wreath frame and an 8-inch wreath frame from the Dollar Tree. I wrapped that with cotton cord, added cord that I braided, and I embellished this piece with florals and beautiful ribbon bows. I enjoyed designing and creating this one so much, and I'm so pleased with the outcome, and I hope you love it as well. I hope you feel inspired to make one. Let me show you how in this tutorial today. Welcome to my channel. Please remember to subscribe if you are not currently, and if you enjoy this tutorial, please give this video a thumbs up, and as well share this video with a friend or a family member or a coworker. And as always, your questions and comments are always welcomed. Okay, let's get busy learning just how, step by step, I created this lovely Easter decor piece. Let's look at the items that you will need to create this piece. Okay, here is the Easter egg wire wreath frame from the Dollar Tree. It has a little defect in it, but I'm going to fix that. If you can't find the egg, you could always use the 14-inch round wreath frame and just make the body round. Now what I'm going to do with my egg is I'm going to trim it down a little bit. I don't want it so wide. I want it to be a little bit more flat. So what I'm doing is just taking my wire cutters and trimming off the outer wire. Now I can manage it a little bit better like this, and it will provide enough of a frame, if you will, to create this body of the bunny. Okay, so I trimmed off 2 of those wires. So I'm left here with 2 wires for my frame. But I'm going to use those wires that I trimmed off, and I'm going to use those for the ears. But I'm going to be wrapping this frame, so it will be a lot more stable by the time I am ready to start this wreath. Now, as well, I'm going to take the 8-inch and trim off the outer wire with my wire cutters. Now, this is pretty easy to do as long as you have some good wire cutters. And you can keep that wire, but I'm pretty sure I used the one that I cut off from the egg to bend that for the ears, and that served a very good purpose. Now, I'm going to wire these 2 together, and I'm able to kind of overlap them in order to do that. Now, what I'm doing here is just trying to flatten that out just a little bit more. And after you cut off some of the outer rings on both of those, you'll find you can flatten it out a little bit. It's not so rounded or bowed. So what I'm trying to do here is just to get that a little flatter so it will fit kind of nestled into one another, so I can combine the head and the body for the bunny. So I trimmed off the 2 outer wires for the egg, and I trimmed off one of the outer wires for the head. So now I'm just going to shape my ears. So I cut that in half. And then I just fold it in half. I got rid of those little nubs there with my wire cutters. And this works really great to shape the ears. And it just turned out to be just the right size. Now, I do like my bunny ears long and more on the narrow side. So I just folded that and crisscrossed it at the bottom. And then I'm going to be just wiring that after I get done with the trimming and shaping of the bunny ear. Okay, so now you can shape your ears however you like. I just happen to love long, thinner bunny ears for my pieces. But you can make them thicker and fuller if you like. Now, I'm going to be using a black wire. Doesn't matter what color you use, it's going to be completely covered up in the end. But you want a little bit heavier wire. A floral wire is going to be a little bit too flimsy. I would go for something a little heavier, because I am going to be doing some serious wiring here in just a minute. I'm going to be wiring the circle piece to the egg, and then the base of the ears. So I pretty much have the shape of my bunny all ready to go there. And this is my black wire. I believe I had gotten mine on Amazon, but it's not difficult to find wire anywhere, from Walmart to Home Depot to, a craft store. I don't know if Dollar Tree carries a heavier wire. I've never purchased it there. Okay, so I have my egg and my head all combined. And I'm going to begin wiring this together. Now, I'm going to create, a pretty hot mess of wire here. You're going to see. But I don't really care how it looks. All I care is that it stays together. Now, anytime I've made some bunnies in this type of shape before through the years. I made one from the last year, I believe. It was in the Dollar Plus section, and the head was like falling off before I even finished the project. And in truth, it's, not that easy to get a piece like this to be super stable. So I'm doing the best I can here. And I ended up having a pretty stable piece just by taking the time to really wire that up. Now, like I said, it doesn't have to be pretty, and mine certainly wasn't, but I didn't care because I'm going to be covering that all up. But being that I've had the experience in the past of this type of a piece where the head really is difficult to keep it really, really straight and intact, so I wanted to try and avoid that kind of drama in the future. And I am just wrapping and wrapping and wrapping with that black wire. Then I take the end of my wire cutters, you see me doing there, and I'm kind of smashing it down. You can also use needle nose pliers and squish it. So I put a lot of wire on there from one side of the neck of that bunny, if you will, to the other. I wired that up like really, really heavily. Now I'm taking some masking tape. You could use any kind of tape, but just use some kind of tape, and then on top of the wire, go ahead and tape it up. So you can see I am really trying to avoid any wobbling of that head in the future. So I really taped this up all over the wire. And that does a pretty good job. Now you're going to have other materials on top of that that's also going to contribute to stabilizing that piece. So you'll see that here in the future in a little bit. Okay, so I do have that little area at the bottom. I just don't even think I noticed. Probably it was defective with that little break in the wire in the store, but I didn't notice it. I haven't seen these egg shapes very much in the Dollar Trees. I've only seen them in like a couple of stores, and there weren't very many. So I'm going to suggest that if you can't find them, you could get just a round one. And if you're really strong, you could try and maybe squish it a little bit and get more of an oval shape if you really want the oval shape. But I wanted to go for something a little bit different with this bunny rather than a round body. I wanted to go with the egg shape. Okay, so I have my ears here. Now I'm going to take that same black wire and I'm going to wrap and wrap and wrap until I get those very, very secure. Now I'm going to leave those little tails there until I decide how exactly I am going to attach those to that piece. So I didn't cut those off until later on. And then even later on, I just cut off just a little bit. So I'm going to show you how I inserted those underneath the braids that go on this piece that I created out of this beautiful cotton cord, which I'll talk to you about here in just a bit. Now I did, you could do this bunny in any type of cord that you like. You could do it in jute cord. You could do it in a soft cotton cord like I did. Mine is like a creamy cord. I believe I had gotten it on Amazon, but I have seen this very similar cord also at Hobby Lobby. But I chose a really soft cord that created a really soft braid. But I could see this piece as well in a jute cord. So that's completely up to you. If you want to make it look farmhouse, that would be beautiful as well. All right, now I decided to take I had some burlap fabric. And I decided that I was going to wrap all of the wires of my two pieces. Well, now it's one piece now that I combined it. Now, you could accomplish the same thing if you wanted to just pick up a couple rolls of burlap ribbon at the Dollar Tree. I just cut mine in strips, and then I cut some quick little squares, and I just went around that frame and wrapped the frame. Now, it's debatable whether I really needed to do this. I mean, in order for the piece to turn out, I think that you could possibly get away with not doing this and then just wrap your wires with whatever cord you decide to use. But you would have to wrap it really, really, really well to prevent seeing those wires around the edges of the bunny. So, that's up to you if you want to do a super tight wrap around it. I chose this method. It did not take me that long, and I really have no regrets in doing it this way. But if you want to save a step, you could try just wrapping your wreath wires with whatever type of cord you use. So I just went around with my little squares and my hot glue. It did not take me long at all. And as you can see here, I just entirely wrapped my piece. And now I'm doing the same with the ears. Now the reason why I have no regrets about doing this is because when I went to wrap all of my wires with my cotton cord, it just clung very well to that burlap surface, if that makes sense. And I feel that it just kept my cotton cording very stable, and it wasn't moving around on the wreath. And I just really liked the way it turned out. But again, that's up to you. Unless you want to just wrap your wires with your cord, you could do that as well. Okay, so I am just doing a simple just like you braid your hair. Now I'm going to count on the fact that you all know how to braid here. But I am using 2 strands per, let's call it a bundle. All right, so there's actually 6 cords that I am braiding, and 2 per group, I guess you could call it. Now, if you're a macrameer, which I am, you could do half knots on this, but I would do like 6 strands if you're going to do that. Or you could do square knots. So if you're a macrameer, you know what I'm talking about. That's another option. But I decided to go with the braids, A, because it's pretty, but B, because I figure everybody knows how to braid. And if you don't, you could ask someone in your family how to braid. Okay, it's the same as when you braid your hair. Okay, so how did I come up with the length of the cords? Well, what I did was I took a tape measure and I went around the circumference of my circle and the circumference of my egg and the circumference of my ears. I'm just wrapping my cording around now. That's what I'm doing. And then I doubled that number and I added a few inches. Now I'm going to put that formula, if you will, in the description box. So the number that I got when I used the tape measure to measure the area going around the circle and around the egg and around the ears, whatever that number was, and I can tell you what it was for me, and I'll put it in the description box, but I multiplied that by 2 and added about 4 inches. And that's the length that I cut my cord to create my braids. Now for the body and for the head, again, I used 2 strands per group, and then I just braided the 3 groups together. And that created a thick enough piece that covered very beautifully over the top of that wreath frame. Now, you may end up with just a little bit extra. That's fine. But for the head, it was 22 inches around. And so I doubled that number and added 4 inches. For the egg, after I trimmed the wires down, it was 38 inches. And I just doubled that and added 4 inches. Now, this is the number of inches you need for each strand for braiding. And again, I used 6 strands for the body, 6 strands for the head, and only 3 strands for the ears. Now I have all of my braiding done. Look how pretty that is. So simple, so easy to do. This cord that I used was very soft and just a really beautiful, beautiful cord. Now when I braided, I just did a very gentle braid. I didn't pull it tightly. I just did a very easy, nice, gentle braid. Now for the ears, again, I measured around that. It came to about 17 inches, which I multiplied by 2 and added 4 inches, and that was the length of each of my strands. See, just like that. That's what you need to do. Okay, and then multiply it by 2 and just add 2 or 3 inches just for extra measure. You don't want to run out of cord after you've already been braiding, and then you go to put it on the piece and oh my gosh, you're short. It's better to have excess than not enough. So now I'm doing the ears, and I like to tape down the ends of my cord to the table. Now I'm just using, as you can see, 3 cords because I certainly don't need that thick braid on my ears. I can go with a smaller braid. So I'm just braiding away here until I get to the end. Now, when I get to the end of my braid, I put a pipe cleaner on there. That keeps it from unbraiding, if you will. I don't know if that's a word, but I think I just made it up. But that keeps it from unraveling, in plain words, until you're ready to place it on your ears or the head or whatever. So one end is already taped, and then the other end I put a pipe cleaner on. That just keeps everything intact. Now, I'm going to start laying my braid down, and I want to begin that braid in an area where I know for sure I am going to be placing florals. And the reason why, obviously, is because I don't want to see the seam, if you will, where the braiding starts and where it ends. Because chances are it's not going to be a perfect mesh. So I have the perfect way to camouflage that or to hide it. So I am going to go about placing my braid on, and this was so satisfying to me. I just enjoyed this part so much. So I took my hot glue gun and I basically just zigzagged in small areas, back and forth, back and forth. I gently laid down my braid, and as I laid it down, I patted it down just so it was sitting perfectly on that wreath frame. Look how pretty that is. I think this piece is just really, really pretty and just unique, and I just love the way it turned out. And I think it's very simple to do. You just have to have the patience to go through all of the steps. I wasn't worried about a little bit of that burlap showing through because it's going to be very well concealed. And like I said, that wrapping of the cord around that piece over the burlap, I felt it was a good idea. But again, if you want to save the step, you could try wrapping your cord around without the burlap. Completely up to you. But look how pretty this is as it goes on. I zigzag my glue application because this way it's catching like all of the sides of that braid. And if I want to press it down and make sure there's no like little areas, space areas between my cords on that braid, I want it to look very, very pretty, that braid. So I went about completing that. Look how pretty that is. I only had a little bit left over. So I did really well. I just cut it off, glued that down. Now I have a little bit of a seam there, but I don't really care. Oh, look how pretty. Yeah, I love this. I'm going to be putting some little flowers there at the neck. So that's not going to be any problem at all. I'm going to do the same thing, exactly the same way for the head. And again, the seam is right there, okay? And that area is going to be covered with flowers. So this is going to just look impeccable when you get finished. It's just going to be beautiful. And now it's time for the ears. So I have my braids all ready, and I'm going to do exactly the same thing, and there's the ears. Now you see why I just did that smaller braid, because it was a smaller surface I was covering. And that looks very, very nice, very pretty. Now those ears, you can bend those over. Love to bend over the end of my bunny ears. So that was perfect for me. All nice and wired. I could just do exactly what I wanted with them. Now to attach those, that's another whole story altogether. Yeah, because, this isn't the easiest with respect to getting all three of these pieces to really behave. But I did it. It's very doable. Now I have one of those wires sticking out the bottom, and I have some E6000. So I'm using like my Mac Daddy glue, the one that I go to for the best hold ever. And that's what I'm going to use. This is a white E6000. Now what I'm going to do is work trying to get that wire to ease under my braiding. Now, it looks like I'm struggling here, but you do have to find just the right spot. The other one went in a little easier. I did want to just take my time in getting that right. Now, I inserted my wire underneath the braiding. I was actually able to do that. And I did that on the other ear as well. And then I put plenty of E6000. Now, I'm not worried, again, about the seam between the head and the base of the ears. Reason being, I made 2 very cute orchid bows that are going to go right at the base of the ear. Now, to hold those on, I took 2 full-size pipe cleaners and I wrapped them around the head, through the inner part of the ear, twisted it very tightly, and now my E6000 is going to dry with those ears perfectly in place. And this worked very well. Worked very well. I left those pipe cleaners on for a good amount of time, hours, before I took them off. So I got a pretty good connection there. So I was pretty happy with that. They're not heavy, of course. They're only wire with some cord on it, but still, I didn't want any wobbling of the ears on the piece. So I'm showing you here some of my florals. I'm going to be using orchids primarily, and then I have some small pink flowers that I used, and some very tiny orchid flowers that I use. Now, my tiny flowers I get at Michael's, and I did get some as well at Joann's. What I'm going to begin with here, and it's completely up to you what flowers you use, but I'm going with pinks and orchids on this one. And my flowers are, for the most part, small flowers, but I do use a couple of other flowers that you're going to see here in just a bit, but they're just moderate in size. So now I'm going to start constructing this area here on the neck. Now I want to cover up any evidence of that seam there. So I'm going to strategically place my florals so that everything just looks perfect. Now you can see I'm starting with the outer edges of that, and I extend it going down the body just a little bit, kind of a little bit of a curve, if you will. And then I'm just going to keep adding to that. I'm going to put my pink flowers down first, which actually are the bigger flowers, even though they're so small. And then I'm going to use these very tiny orchid flowers, which I'm going to use a lot of on this piece, as you're going to see here in a bit. Now that hot glue just works beautifully to attach those flowers to that cotton cording. It just very, very conducive to adhesion here. So I just went about placing all of my flowers on. Now, again, you do you, however you want to place yours. Maybe if you want more greenery, or if you want to use a couple of little bigger flowers. But I'm just going to suggest whatever you use, think about how you can strategically cover the seam where your braiding starts and concludes on that neck area. And this, like I said, works like a charm beautifully. And these flowers, one other thing that's really awesome about these braids is you take these tiny flowers, you put the tiny dab of glue at the base of the flower, and you could just poke them right into the little crevices of your braid. Oh, I'm telling you, this works so beautifully. I was just so pleased with this piece. The way that it all came together, I virtually had no problems whatsoever with this. Now, when I started it, it was one of those fly by the seat of my crafting pants projects where I just figure it out as I go along, but I love doing that. So, yeah, that's so much fun to me. So the more I did, the more I added on, the more I loved it as I was adding on. So I hope you love this one as well. I just think it's so lovely. Okay, so I'm just adding all of the flowers that I plan to add there, adding those little tiny purple, or they're kind of orchid. I believe they have those bunches as well with the teeny tiny little flowers at Joann's, which you all know we're losing Joann's. It's just, yeah, I don't like to ever hear that a store that I go to for my crafting needs is closing. I also heard a rumor about Dollar Tree increasing their prices. Does anybody know anything about that? That it's going up to $1.50? Or is that just a rumor? Let me know in the comments. Not that I'm a huge Dollar Tree person, but I do go there for quite a number of different items. So I was just curious. Still, $1.50 is not bad, for a wreath frame, but, I'm not going to complain about it. I guess Dollar Tree has to do what they have to do. So, as you can see here, back to the wreath, I am adding all of my little tiny orchid flowers. And these are very tiny, but oh boy, they just add something to this piece. Look how pretty that is. Now I'm going to be adding a nice big bow on the bottom. Oh boy, this is really turns out so pretty with beautiful, beautiful ribbons. But I'm not putting any bow in the neck area. I'm putting bows at the base of the ears, which is plenty of bow action for the top of that Easter decor piece. And then I have one at the bottom, so it balances out. Okay, so now I am creating my little bows for the base of the ear. Now I have two different shades of orchid. One of these is wired. That's that very sheer one. That's a Robert Stanley ribbon, I believe. Yes, that's Robert Stanley. I'm creating two very small bows for the base of the ear. And it kind of reminds me of how, like, if you have pigtails, you put bows on the pigtails. Yeah, I'm doing it on ears. So you get the idea. That's kind of where my brain was going with that. Okay, so I'm just creating a little 4-loop bow. And I am going to put a little piece of floral wire. That's my very favorite floral wire from the Dollar Tree. And I just twist that in the back to hold the loops. It's a 26 gauge. Love this wire. Use it all the time for little bows. I don't want to be using a bulky pipe cleaner for this. I need a very fine wire. So this is going to be the base of my bow, but I'm not stopping there. I am going to add a satin, lighter shade of orchid bow right on top of that. And this turns out so adorable on the ears of this bunny. So I'm not going to do anything with the tails right yet. I'm just going to leave them until I go to place that on the ear, or the base of the ear. Now, this little bow I am doing in my typical twist my ribbon, fold it over, pinch it in the center, because I need to have a center loop in this bow. Otherwise, I would just do a figure 8 bow, but I didn't want to put anything in the center of the bow. I just wanted the bows to just be bows without anything embellishing the center. So because of that, I had to do this method. Okay, and I created 4 loops on that one, a little bit smaller. I want to say the loops on the base bow, the darker shade of orchid, that sheer bow, they were around 4 inches, and these are a little bit less, maybe 3 to 3.5 inches, because I want them to be just a little bit smaller loops than the base bow. So I have my 4 loops all created. Now, when you're working with really small bows like this method is a little bit more tricky, but because I've made 1,000 bows in my life, at least, oh my gosh, so many. Yeah, I'm pretty proficient at doing this, even on a smaller scale. So I'm just going to take my wire from around the back. I just made a little center loop in that bow, popping it through the loop, picking it up on the other side, pulling it around the back, twisting, and now all my loops are connected and stable together. I'm going to take that little tail on the top, pop it right through my center loop. I'm going to be doing a bow tutorial after Easter decor season is over, and I'm going to highlight all of the bows that I do on my videos, including my beautiful woodblock piece that I create small bows on. I'm going to do large and small and figure 8, all of them. Okay, I'm going to create one more bow. Now, after I get them all created, I'm just going to put a dab of glue in the center and glue the 2 of them together. Now this just adds the most beautiful orchid pop of color on the top of the bunny. Okay, so we have our neck completed. Now it's time to go down to the bottom, and as well we have the bows for our ears. Now I'm going to use this beautiful, it's kind of an orchid, not really purple, ribbon with the polka dots. Love, love, love this ribbon. It's a kind of a fabric ribbon, wired 2.5 inch. I believe I got that on craftcentraldesigns.com. I'm just going to make my loops about 8 inches on this bow because I don't want them really, really big. Because I want them to sit kind of in the curvature of the body of my bunny. So I'm going to create around an 8-inch long loop. I pinch it in the center there. I leave about 8 inches for the tail. And then this way I can trim that up as need be after I have it on the piece. Okay, so on the other side, I'm going to create a loop, folding it over, pinching it in the center, matching it up visually to be symmetrical with the loop on the other side. Twist my ribbon so the right side of my ribbon is always facing up. Now I'm going to create my second loop on the left side, pinch it in the center, make sure my loops are symmetrical just by pressing them up against one another. I can tell that. I don't really need to use a ruler. Now I'm going to fold over my second loop on the other side. So now I have a 4-loop bow that's going to be the base of my bow. I'm going to be adding 2 other bows on top of this in a different pattern. This is the way to create really visually interesting and very beautiful bows. So my orchid and with white polka dots is the base bow. And then I'm going to next be adding on an Easter ribbon that has lots of orchids, but it also has some pinks that will coordinate very well with the pink flowers that I'm using on this piece. If you were to do this one in a farmhouse theme, oh boy, this would be pretty too. You could use a jute cord and a pretty ribbons that are farmhouse style, pretty burlaps or prints. maybe a burlap with white polka dots. Yeah, I could see this as a farmhouse piece very easily. Okay, so my next bow is going to be made exactly the same way, only I'm going to make the loops just a little bit smaller. So I want to say they're 7 to 7.5, something like that in length, inches. I'm going to make that bow exactly the same way, folding over my loops, pinching it in the center, twisting my ribbon to make sure the right side is up each time before I fold over my loops to create the next loop. And then I'm going to take a little piece of pipe cleaner and just close that up, twist it in the back, and now all those loops are secure. That is going to be placed on the polka dot. That's a very pretty Easter ribbon, I believe. Did I mention I got that on craftcentraldesigns.com? Pretty sure I did. Very pretty. Now, last but not least, see how I have 3 completely different patterns that I'm using? And you'll see this turns out to be a gorgeous bow. But also notice I'm using a thinner ribbon. I'm using a 1.5-inch ribbon here. You can mix your widths of ribbons. Mix your patterns, mix your widths. Now, I always put my more narrow width ribbons or bows on the top, and the larger, the 2.5-inch ones underneath that. This is a gorgeous ribbon, one of my absolute favorite ribbons. It's a Celebrate ribbon from Michaels. Love, love, love this ribbon. It's a cloth ribbon. It's wired. It's just exquisite quality. I always purchase and make sure I have these on hand in my ribbon stash from Michaels. I have them in pink and white, a burlap color and white, orchid and white. Love, love. Okay, this is my top bow, so I need to create a center loop. I'm going to just roll that loop under. Watch how I do this. Turn it under, press my thumb up against that to hold it, take the pipe cleaner from around the back, poke it through that loop, and that's going to secure that. Bring it around the back, give it a couple of twists. Now those loops were probably more like 7 inches, just slightly smaller than the one, the Easter ribbon. Now I have one tail on the top, one on the bottom, so I'm just going to twist my ribbon, do a gentle fold, pop it right through that loop there in the center, and I have a beautiful ribbon. This ribbon is very durable. It's another thing that I love about it. I love a cloth ribbon that's wired, like a nice heavy cloth ribbon, because they last much longer on a wreath. Some of those Dollar Tree thin ribbons, they're not going to take you past one season. If you want your wreaths to last, invest in a better quality ribbon. Robert Stanley ribbons at Hobby Lobby are also very good. Every other week they're 40% off. Okay, so I snip off any excess pipe cleaner on the back of my bows there so that I get a nice flush application, one bow on top of another. And I'm just going to stack all my bows. The striped one going on top. I'm going to open up my loops to receive that last layer. And there it is. Pop it on top. Look how pretty that is. I press them together, make sure all of my centers are aligned and pressed up against one another. I'm going to use a full-size pipe cleaner here. I think I'm searching for one. That's why nothing's happening here. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so I popped it through the center loop, pop it between the sets of tails, bring it around the back, pulling it very tightly, and I twist, and now those tails of the pipe cleaner, or what tails of the pipe cleaner are what I'm going to use to wrap around the wreath to place my bow on there, and that works very well. Now I'm going to be placing my bow on the egg-shaped wreath there at around 7 to 8 o'clock. Now I thought about putting it at 6 o'clock straight down on the bottom. And I just decided 7 to 8 was there. Now you can see it would look good there. If you prefer it there, go for it. I mean, but I decided to go for like the 7 to 8 o'clock. And when I place my bow down, I want to really nestle it kind of on the curvature of the wreath, not necessarily flat on top, but more tilted inward, if that makes any sense. So I proceeded to wrap that around. I don't think I showed that part, but it's quite simple. Take the tails of the pipe cleaner, wrap it around the wreath, twist it in the back, and there you go. It was that easy. Okay, now I'm deciding what flowers I'm going to use. Now, that flower there is so pretty, but I just decided not to use that. Even though it went okay with my ribbon. I was trying to match pinks with that Easter ribbon. Okay, so what I'm doing here is I'm trimming up my tails. Now, when I create a mixed ribbon bow like this, I layer my tails. The bottom bow being the longest tail, the next one a little bit shorter, and then the one on top a little bit shorter. This way, there's a layering effect so that you're actually seeing all the features of each one of the ribbons. And then the last one. And I just give them a little bit of a curl at the bottom. So 7 to 8 o'clock for the bow. That's my preference. If you want, you could do 6. Or you could do 4 and 5. 4 to 5 o'clock. Either or, it doesn't matter. So you can see off to the side there, I have my very cute little orchid ribbons. For the ears, we'll be putting those on in a bit. But first, I'm doing the florals. Now, I'm going to be placing a little bit of florals on each, out to each side of the bow. Not a lot, but just a little bit. And I do a little bit of a dry run with that, deciding exactly what I want to use. I didn't use that. I used some of those. They're a little bit more purple than orchid, but I put some of those on there. And I just used whatever I liked and just placed a few flowers. Hot glued them in, very easy. You choose the flowers that you like. Arrange them first before you glue. Okay, I think I already did glue them on at the base of the ears. And then I'm just going to trim them up a little bit. I think I'm showing you doing that. I do leave a little bit of a tail. I like the look of that. So those bows look so super cute up there at the base of the ear. And they accomplished a great purpose as well by hiding where I attached the ears. And yep, so I'm just loving that pop of orchid up at the top of that decor piece. Boy, do I love that. Okay, so I said that already. Okay, so after you glue in all of your florals, and again, that's up to you how much or how little you use. I just used a little bit, a couple of medium-sized, maybe 2 or 3 medium-sized flowers, and then the rest were really, really small flowers. The same flowers that I used at the neck, I incorporated those into that area around the bow as well. Now, for my last floral application, I took these tiny, tiny little orchid flowers and I popped them in all around the bunny, up on the ears, on the head, throughout the body, just here and there. Now, as I mentioned, this braid really provides the best place to place your floral, your little tiny flowers. And again, I believe those tiny flowers came from Joann's, but I think they also have them at Michael's. Now see how I'm just placing them here and there? It's not a solid, not a solid blanket of them, just here and there. And I just placed them, stuck them, a little bit of glue on the base, just stuck them right into the cords of that braid, and that just worked so beautifully. And I love the effect of that. It just looks so, so pretty. Okay, now, got to hang this thing up, right? Okay, so I made a little loop out of a pipe cleaner, twisted it on the bottom, and I'm going to be sure that I don't make it too long because I don't want it poking up in between the ears, and be noticeable. So I put some hot glue there. Now this piece is really extremely light, believe it or not, with everything that I put on it. But I did put a little piece of felt for extra stability. Now, if you're concerned about it coming off, which I'm not, you could use E6000 or you could use Aleene's Tacky if you feel you want more of a hold. But honestly, I'm sure it'll be fine. And here we have, this is a very cute bunny made from the egg and the 8-inch wreath frame from the Dollar Tree. Okay, here's all my little baby purple orchid flowers, not purple orchid, all over my piece. Beautiful bouquet of flowers at the neck, a little bit of florals on each side of the bow. And that is my beautiful Easter bunny. I hope you all enjoyed this tutorial, and I hope you feel inspired to make one. Okay, so here you have it, one last and final look. Ugh, love the orchid bows on the ears of the bunny. Now you could go with any color, you could go with a farmhouse theme on this one. So much versatility. And I love filming this outside because you could really see the colors. Look at the little tiny flowers inserted into the braid. Let me know what you think of this one. Okay, remember, if you are not currently a subscriber, please let me know by subscribing. And give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed the tutorial. And as always, I love receiving your comments. And until next time, you all take care.